and it will destroy opportunity for people right here in the United States. The American people don't want more bad free trade deals that aren't free. I encourage all of my colleagues to vote against this horrible, horrible package of trade deals, and I yield back my time. Enough is enough.
The woman's time has expired. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. At this time, I yield 1 minute to the distinguished chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, the gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Ros-Lehtinen.
The gentlewoman from Florida is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank my good friend from Michigan. Madam Speaker, at a time when millions of American families are struggling and so many people are looking for work, passage of this U.S.-South Korea free trade agreement should be a top priority for all of us. But there's more at stake than just increased exports. South Korea is a key U.S. ally in an unstable region of the world where tens of thousands of our U.S. troops stand on guard against aggression and where U.S. interests are increasingly under threat from China and other countries. At a time where much of the world is waiting to see if the U.S. will retreat from our responsibilities, passage of this free trade agreement will serve as a clear demonstration of our enduring commitment to our ally South Korea and our determination to defend our interests throughout East Asia. I strongly urge my colleagues to vote for this U.S.-South Korea free trade agreement and for the creation of tens of thousands of American jobs for the many families who are desperately in need of them. I thank the gentleman for the time.
Gentlewoman yields back. Gentleman from Maine is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Sherman.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Looks like the only thing Congress is going to do this year about jobs is to ship them overseas. Trade adjustment assistance is being authorized tomorrow, but not a penny is being appropriated tomorrow, and any penny that is appropriated will no doubt be taken from health and education spending necessary without the trade agreements. This South Korean free trade agreement will increase our trade deficit by tens of billions of dollars, and every billion of dollars of increase in our trade deficit costs us tens of thousands of jobs. The agreement is being sold as if goods made in South Korea are the only goods that are going to come into our country. That's wrong in 3 ways. First, if goods are 65% made in China, 35% finished in South Korea, they come into our country duty-free. And that 35% of the work done in South Korea can be done by Chinese workers living in barracks in South Korea. So the goods may not ever be touched by a South Korean. We are going to be talking in this Congress, I hope, about Chinese currency manipulation. There are proposals that would impose tariffs on Chinese goods. This South Korean agreement that is a pre-built loophole in anything we try to do with China over currency manipulation. They manipulate their currency. They make 65% of the goods in China. They ship them to South Korea. They come in free into the United States without having to worry about our tariffs or our sanctions against their currency manipulation. Second, goods that are 65% made in North Korea, 35% made in South Korea, have a right to come in under this agreement. But we have an executive order that will bar them at our ports. So we will be in violation of this agreement on the first day. That means South Korea can impose sanctions and take away whatever benefits you think we're going to get under this agreement. I ask the gentleman for no additional time, and I thank the gentleman for his time.
Gentleman's time has expired. Who seeks recognition? Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
Mr. Speaker, I just have 1 speaker remaining.
Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin is recognized.
We have 2. Let's see. Next is I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from California, Mr. Berman, the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my friend for yielding, and I rise in support of the Korea Trade Agreement. The agreement will lead to increased California exports of manufactured goods, agricultural products, raw materials, thereby create a large number of new jobs, and it provides rigorous intellectual property protections for the creative industries in Los Angeles and throughout the nation. But I'd like to use the remainder of my time to address the allegation that the agreement would undermine our sanctions against North Korea. There is no truth to those allegations. Under KORUS, we will continue to enforce our sanctions against North Korea just as we do now. The first allegation is that the agreement would allow North Korean goods produced at the Kaesong Industrial Complex in North Korea or elsewhere in that country to be imported into the United States. I raised this issue with Ambassador Kirk. His response in writing, I quote, "Neither the rules of origin nor any other provision of KORUS changes U.S. sanctions on North Korea, including the prohibition on direct or indirect importation of goods, services, and technology from North Korea." He went on to say that South Korean firms cannot avoid U.S. sanctions by including parts from North Korea in their exports to the U.S. and claiming preferential tariff treatment. The second allegation is that South Korean firms might have recourse against U.S. actions targeted at North Korea, either under KORUS or the WTO. Kirk's response? U.S. sanctions are fully consistent with KORUS, and therefore South Korea would not be able to obtain remedies against U.S. sanctions using KORUS dispute settlement procedures. Nor does KORUS provide South Korea with any recourse to WTO. According to the, I ask unanimous consent for one additional minute. Do you have that? 30 seconds. According to the Congressional Research Service, Article 2.8.4a explicitly permits the U.S. to prohibit imports from third country as North Korea. The fact is, we pass KORUS, our North Korean embargo stands. We defeat KORUS, our embargo stands. There are legitimate issues to debate regarding KORUS, but one should not let a bogus argument determine our vote. And I yield back, and I thank the gentleman.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Maine is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Lipinski.
Gentleman from Illinois is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank the gentleman for yielding and for his leadership on this issue. Mr. Speaker, I cannot imagine a worse time with this job-killing trade agreement with South Korea. Expanding a NAFTA-style trade agenda that has already destroyed 5 million manufacturing jobs would make no sense in the best of times. But with 25 million Americans unemployed or underemployed, it is totally absurd now. Economists estimate that 159,000 American workers will lose their jobs over 7 years if we pass this agreement. Most of these good-paying manufacturing jobs. In exchange, we likely get not only more Chinese imports, but we open up our country to imports from the nuclear dictatorship in North Korea. Manufacturers in my district know this. Workers in my district know this. It only seems that Washington is blind to this. It is well past time that Washington puts American workers and American manufacturers first. We can start by rejecting this trade agreement so we can no longer hang out our middle class to dry. We need to support American workers now. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Gentleman from Michigan, Mr.
At
Camp.
this time, I yield 1.5 minutes to a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Paulson.
Gentleman from Minnesota is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the chairman for his leadership, because this is an exciting day and important time for our economy. I strongly urge passage of all three of these long-stalled free trade agreements, which will promote exports with new sales to new customers, giving our economy more jobs. And while some in Washington have put these trade agreements on the back burner, other countries have been moving full speed ahead on trade. The European Union signed their own agreement with South Korea, which put American companies at a disadvantage in one of the great emerging Asian markets. Standing still on trade is moving our economy backwards. Mr. Speaker, passing the South Korea trade agreement is the quickest and most effective way to level the playing field for American companies, small, medium, and large. One of Minnesota's major employers with lots of jobs connected to trade is 3M, who manufactures everyday products from Post-it notes to Scotch tape to road signs to medical devices. And South Korea is this company's fourth largest export market, and the passage of this trade agreement will lower the duty rate levied on these American products by $20 million. This is about selling American. This will free up additional capital to create new jobs and reinvest in innovation and research and development to create new products. Mr. Speaker, we must remain focused on creating jobs and helping our economy. I strongly encourage the passage of the South Korea Free Trade Agreement as well as the agreements with Panama and Colombia, marking the largest expansion of trade in 15 years. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
Could I inquire how much time remains for the three of us?
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, has 23.5 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, has 21.5 minutes remaining. And the gentleman from Maine, Mr. Michaud, has 21 minutes.
If I might ask Mr. Camp.
Yeah, we have no further speakers, so I'll reserve.
So you'll save that extra minute and a half to tomorrow, I guess so. I yield myself 3.5 minutes. I may use only 2.5.
Gentleman's recognized.
First, I want to emphasize each of these agreements should be on their own merit. Trade is so polarized, it's easy to lump things all together. We won't carve out a new trade policy if that's the way we proceed. Secondly, there's been reference to NAFTA. This is really kind of an anti-NAFTA agreement. The labor standards are the new standards that we put into Peru and are incorporated here. The reference to job loss and EPI, it bases its assumption that what happened after NAFTA in terms of trade will happen as to Korea. They're very different situations, and that's why many suggestions are that there will be major increases in jobs. Thirdly, there's been reference to this as the George Bush FTA. No, this is the FTA renegotiated by the Obama administration. And why was it renegotiated? To open up the markets of Korea, to change one-way trade to two-way trade. That's jobs, and that's exactly what this agreement does. And tomorrow we will outline how it does it. In all respects, it will make sure that the Korean market at long last is open to American automotive products, which is the major source of our trade deficit. That's why the automotive companies issued this statement. I quote, "As representatives of the largest exporting sector, this FTA will help open an important auto market for Chrysler, Ford, and GM exports. Our companies make the best cars and trucks on the road, and we are excited for the export opportunity this agreement represents." That's why it's supported by the UAW. It will open up markets. That's why Ford sat down today and described how they're going to penetrate the market of Korea. They're determined to do that, as the other companies are. So this is a market opening provision at long last. In that sense, a major change from the Bush negotiated agreement. I strongly urge support for the Korea FTA, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, reserves. Gentleman from Maine is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I'd like to yield 1 minute to a leader of the China currency manipulation legislation, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Kritz.
Gentleman from Pennsylvania is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank the gentleman from Maine for yielding. Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the Korea Free Trade Agreement. I represent a manufacturing district, and we need trade policies that put American workers first. I've seen firsthand the negative effects that trade agreements have had on our manufacturing sector, and this one is estimated to displace 159,000 jobs and increase our trade deficit with Korea by $16.7 billion. Every trade dollar we lose as a result of an international marketplace rigged against us is one more blow to our effort to climb out of debt and get our economy moving again. We can prevent the outsourcing and offshoring of American jobs and the ballooning of our trade deficit simply by basing trade agreements on a level playing field and rebuild our manufacturing strength. In order to accomplish this, we must oppose agreements like this one that are founded on policies that have a record of failure. With an unemployment rate currently hovering around 9% and an 11 million job shortfall, we simply cannot afford another trade agreement that increases the deficit and drives more Americans out of work. Please join me in opposing the Korea Free Trade Agreement, as all our workers and businesses deserve to know that we are standing up for them in the global marketplace. Thank you, and I yield back.
Pursuant to Clause 1C of Rule 19, further consideration of H.R. 3080 is postponed. What purpose does the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 425, I call up H.R. 2832 with the Senate amendment thereto, and I have a motion at the desk.
The clerk will report the title of the bill, designate the Senate amendment, and report the motion.
H.R. 2832, an act to extend the generalized system of preferences and for other purposes. Senate amendment. Mr. Camp of Michigan moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment to H.R. 2832.
Pursuant to House Resolution 425, the motion shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the Chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Ways and Means. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, and the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, each will control 30 minutes. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of H.R. 2832, the bill which renews the Generalized System of Preference Program and also contains the Trade Adjustment Extension Act of 2011. This bill is the cornerstone of a carefully crafted bipartisan, bicameral agreement that prompted the President to send the 3 trade agreements to Congress last Monday, and in turn has allowed us to move forward on the long-stalled trade agenda. The bill renews the bipartisan GSP, the largest U.S. trade preference program, which was already passed by the House last month. Not only does this legislation allow duty-free access for specific products from certain developing countries into the U.S. market, it makes U.S. manufacturing more competitive by lowering the cost of inputs. The Coalition for GSP has estimated that over 82,000 U.S. jobs are directly or indirectly associated with this program. This legislation renews the program through July 31, 2013, and applies it retroactively for eligible products imported after the program's expiration date on December 31, 2010. This program is fully offset with spending cuts. This bill also contains a reauthorization of trade adjustment assistance, better known as TAA. Earlier this summer, the White House sprung upon us that it would not send the free trade agreements to Congress if there was no quote-unquote deal on TAA. I took this demand to heart and made a decision that I had to do everything in my power to reach agreement on a streamlined, cost-effective, and reduced TAA program to ensure that all 3 job-creating trade agreements could move forward. I worked with Chairman Baucus and the White House to forge a bipartisan agreement on TAA to do just that. The core principles of our conference, ensuring smaller government and cutting spending, were the foundation of my negotiating stance throughout the TAA talks. As a result, contrary to initial White House demands that we authorize the 2009 TAA law that, according to the Congressional Budget Office, cost more than $700 million per year for 5 years, we forced the administration to accept significant cuts to the program. The cost of the final TAA agreement is approximately 1/2 that amount. according to CBO. The deal costs roughly $900 million total for a 3-year program and is fully offset with spending cuts, including deep cuts below the baseline to the program itself. Moreover, TAA reverts to 2002 levels or below for 2014, and the entire program completely ends after 2014. In order to achieve these savings, we streamlined and scaled back TAA as a whole. I'll note some of the highlights. We reduced the number of weeks of income support under the TAA for Workers program from 156 in 2009 down to 117 weeks, with up to an additional 13 weeks available only if the applicant has met stringent standards and has substantially met the performance benchmarks of his or her training program. I also want to note here for clarity that TAA benefits run concurrently with unemployment benefits. In other words, there is no double dipping. We slashed the health care subsidy from 80% down to 72.5% and completely repeal it after 2013. We denied TAA eligibility for public sector workers. We eliminated half of the allowable justifications for the program's training waivers to ensure that only those who are in training will be eligible for TAA benefits, with only limited exceptions. We consolidated and reduced by $110 million all non-income support expenditures of the program. We slashed funding for TAA for firms back to 2002 law levels, made TAA for farmers a discretionary program, and eliminated most of the TAA for communities program authorized at $190 million in the 2009 law. We also added in enhanced performance measures and accountability into all of the TAA programs. And on top of that, we fully offset this program with spending cuts. Overall, we've slashed and streamlined TAA significantly and are today moving forward the most significant trade deals this country has seen in over 15 years. For those who are concerned about TAA, let me urge you to recognize that this extension of a scaled-back TAA is a small price to pay for the extraordinary promise these trade agreements hold for our economy. I encourage my colleagues to consider the 4 votes for the 3 trade agreements and the GSP-TAA bill as a comprehensive package and a model of bipartisanship for creating jobs and enhancing economic growth in this country. Therefore, I urge all of my colleagues to support this legislation, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, is recognized.
I yield as much time as he shall consume to the ranking member on the Trade Subcommittee, Mr. McDermott.
Gentleman's recognized. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, finally we come to the most important of the bills that we're going to deal with tonight. This should have been the first bill. It should have been dealt with a long time ago, back in February when it expired, because this is a bill that extends 2 programs that have had strong bipartisan support in the past, the Trade Adjustment Assistance Program and the Generalized System of Preferences Program. When the leadership in the Senate decided that the only thing that they were going to do was stop President Obama from having a second term, they recognized this trade issue was a very sensitive one, and the most sensitive issue was, what does it do to American workers? Do we help people that are displaced when jobs go overseas or just disappear generally? Then are we going to help our workers? And the Democrats said we got to do that. If we don't do that, nothing else is going to happen. Finally, the Republican leadership in the Senate said, well, okay, because we want something, we'll finally give a little something to the workers. You heard the reductions that have been made. This bill started in 1962 under John Kennedy, and it was done to help workers who were laid off because of increased competition in trade. In 2009, we finally had a reform with bipartisan support. The Congress made significant changes in TAA, many of which were to deal with past criticisms of the bill. It wasn't enough. It didn't help people. You needed health care benefits. There was a lot of things that were problematic since 1962. When the Recovery Act became the vehicle in 2009, TAA was put on it. There was never any expectation then it would just disappear in 2011. Senator Grassley, nice conservative, solid senator from Republican from Iowa, said, quote, "Today's achievement is the culmination of years of effort, and I'm confident the result will serve to benefit American workers in Iowa and across the United States for years to come," not ending in 2011. For years to come. Don't forget those words. And yet the House leadership made the unfortunate choice to let those critical reforms expire last winter. Washington state workers benefited immensely from those 2009 reforms. In fact, in the past couple of years, 35% of all the workers certified for TAA in Washington state were certified under the new eligibility criteria, including the expansion of work programs to cover service workers. Today's bill protects and preserves the integrity of the TAA program and the 2009 reforms and provides trade-impacted workers with the support they need to get back on their feet. Now, when you lose a job, it used to be an unemployment was sort of set up that if your construction job went away because it was winter time, you went on unemployment insurance, and springtime came and the job came back and away you went. In this economy, the jobs go away and they don't come back. So you have to learn some new skill to make a living for your family. Now, that concept is the one that we should have for all workers in this country, not just for those affected by trade. Workers in Washington and all across the country have suffered because of the delay in the implementation of this bill. This bill also extends the General Systems of Preferences program, which is the oldest of the U.S. assistance programs for our business people in this country. It's played an important role in our nation's trade and development efforts for decades. Sometimes I ask myself if anybody on the Republican side ever had anything to do with a business. I'm not a businessman, but I know that the most important thing for a businessman or businesswoman is to be able to plan, to know that the program's going to be there and that you can quote a price to somebody because you know it'll be there. But the GSP program, which has been important to a lot of our small businesses, has simply been unreliable because the Republican leadership couldn't seem to figure out how to extend something that has been bipartisan for years. And U.S. workers, as well as businesses, have relied on GSP. About 65 to 70% of U.S. imports under GSP are imports used to support U.S. manufacturing. We're getting things from outside to bring into this country. As a result of the delay in extending GSP, and in the U.S. and in developing countries that rely on these preferences, the business deals have ended. There have been all kinds of problems. We hear about them in our office from our little businesses in our district. Now we are finally considering this important legislation. I urge my colleagues to pass it. I understand that the Senate is tomorrow going to pass it at exactly the same time as we pass it in here. It'll be a historic moment that we extend a program that started as bipartisan in 1962. It is essential that we as a Congress think about our workers and their jobs. We're not worried about the rest of the world. A big problem in this country is that we haven't paid attention to our workers and what happens to them when they lose their job. They have unemployment, maybe for 99 weeks. We haven't extended unemployment benefits either. There's another issue hanging around here that's going to ultimately hurt our workers. And the leadership on the other side knows it. Why they sit there and dangle our workers that way? Why do you want to make them angry and upset and uncertain? You watch this Tea Party in the street, you watch what's going on down on Wall Street, you got to say to yourself, there's something brewing out there, and if you don't deal with unemployment insurance and what happens to workers, we are going to have a very turbulent year in the next year. I yield back the balance of my time by urging all the members to vote for this.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield to the distinguished chairman of the Trade Subcommittee, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady, such time as he may consume.
The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues in strongly supporting passage of this legislation, which renews the Generalized System of Preferences program and also reauthorizes a smaller Trade Adjustment Assistance program. This bill is a key part of the bipartisan trade package before us today and is crucial to letting the world know the United States is back on the trade field again. The legislation has two very important parts, GSP and Trade Adjustment Assistance. With regard to preferences, this program provides preferential access to certain imports from selected developing countries. As importantly, it also benefits U.S. manufacturers and creates U.S. jobs. Nearly 3/4 of all the eligible imports are raw materials, components, parts, or machinery and equipment used by American companies to manufacture goods in America. That means our manufacturers can make things here in the United States more cheaply and employ more Americans in the process. As far as I'm concerned, that is a real win-win. Moreover, I must note this program is fully offset with spending cuts. On Trade Adjustment Assistance, I applaud Chairman Camp for his scaled-back version of TAA that he was able to negotiate with the White House and Chairman Baucus from the Senate. At the outset, the White House demanded that there be a straight extension of the 2009 law for 5 years and held the trade agreements, frankly, hostage. Chairman Camp, however, refused to accept that ultimatum. He instead negotiated a strong agreement and forced the White House to accept deep cuts to the programs as well as other significant spending cuts, including cuts to other unemployment benefit programs. Overall, according to the Congressional Budget Office, the Trade Adjustment Assistance package costs 1/2 of what the administration had originally demanded and is fully offset with spending cuts. Now, there is fair criticism of Trade Adjustment Assistance that it is expensive, not especially efficient, and has grown over years to not really serve the people that it needs to. And in this tight fiscal situation, those are fair concerns. In an ideal world, the President would have needed no persuading to send up the trade agreement to Congress, and we would have considered them long ago. However, the reality is different, and we were told in order to move forward bipartisan legislation on trade, we had to work with the Senate and the White House on this issue. In this case, Chairman Camp, on behalf of Republicans in the House and the Senate, secured significant reforms to the programs, including key spending cuts, consolidations, and other concessions. The program has been cut in some cases below the 2002 trade adjustment levels, all setting the stage for sunset of the program at the end of 2014. All in all, our constructive bipartisan work on trade has yielded a victory for the American people, both through the trade agreements and this bill. I urge my colleagues to support this measure and consider this to be part of a comprehensive package, a comprehensive bipartisan jobs package for America. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
Time is there on both sides on this?
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, has 23 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, has 22 minutes remaining.
I think, Mr. Camp, shall we both reserve the balance of our time? Okay, I reserve the balance of our time.
Gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, both reserve.
Yes.
Pursuant to Clause 1C of Rule 19, further consideration of the motion is postponed. Chair lays before the House the following personal request.
Leave of absence requested for Mr. Nunnally of Mississippi for today.
What purpose does the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, rise?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate.
Today in the House, members took up several bills pertaining to veterans programs, amendments to the EPA boiler emission regulations bill, and trade agreements with South Korea, Panama, and